The alarm has already sounded, but almost no one heard it. Gold just shattered $4,000 an ounce, and that's not a milestone, it's a warning. Something inside the global financial system just broke. The world's faith in paper money, the faith that built empires, is collapsing in real time. Deep inside the Federal Reserve, the printing presses are humming again. Not for a crisis rescue, but for something far bigger. They're calling it QE to the power of X. We've seen this before, in Rome's last century, in Weimar's spiral, and in Britain after the war. Every empire thought it could print its way out of decline. Every one of them was wrong. Because when money loses meaning, trust dies. And when trust dies, so does the empire. In the next few minutes, you're going to see why this moment isn't just another market cycle, it's the beginning of a monetary revolution. We'll trace the hidden chain linking Rome's silver, Britain's pound, and America's dollar, and how each empire's final chapter began the same way, with a promise it couldn't keep. You'll discover what QE to the power of X truly represents, and why it's not an economic policy, but the final stage of financial empire. Most importantly, you'll see what happens next. How gold, trust, and debt will decide who rises, who falls, and how you can stand on the right side of money when the reset begins. If this story opens your eyes, tap like. It helps more people see what's really happening behind the numbers. Because this story isn't about charts or markets, it's about the end of an era and the birth of the next one. Subscribe to follow the next chapter of money and power. Imagine a siren no one can hear, not in the streets, but deep inside the vaults of the world's central banks. That's gold. It doesn't make noise, it glows when things go wrong. At $4,000 an ounce, that glow is now blinding. This isn't a rally, it's a rebellion. Gold shouting what economists won't say out loud. Faith is dying. For 50 years, our money has survived on confidence alone. No gold backing, no limits, just trust. But every chart, every headline, every ounce rising higher whispers the same truth. That trust is running out. We've been here before. In the 1970s, when Nixon unpegged the dollar from gold, prices exploded and currencies cracked. What followed wasn't stability, it was reinvention. And now that reinvention is happening again. Central banks aren't buying gold for profit. They're buying it for survival. Because they know the next chapter isn't about growth or inflation, it's about the end of belief itself. For nearly 80 years, the dollar didn't just dominate, it defined power itself. It bought wars, built empires, and turned debt into destiny. Every nation bowed to its green paper, believing it was as eternal as gold once was. But every crown cracks, and this one began to crumble long before anyone dared to admit it. The breaking point came quietly, in 2022. With a single decision, Western nations froze Russia's reserves, hundreds of billions gone overnight. In that instant, the illusion shattered. The dollar wasn't neutral, it was a weapon, one that could be turned on anyone at any time. And the world took notice. From Beijing to Riyadh, from Brasilia to New Delhi, nations began stacking gold instead of dollars, not to trade, but to defend. Because gold can't be sanctioned, it can't be deleted with a keystroke. History whispered its warning. Rome debased its silver. Britain inflated away its empire. Now America stands at the same crossroads, but with far greater debt and no one left to bail it out. The empire of paper is trembling, and the world is already building what comes next.
What if the cure that saved the system became the disease that kills it? Every empire has tried to cheat decline with the same magic trick: more money. Rome diluted its silver. France drowned in paper. And America? It perfected the illusion. Quantitative easing. QE was born as a lifeline, a desperate fix after the crash of 2008. It was supposed to be temporary, a bandage on a bleeding economy. But the bandage became the bloodstream. Crisis after crisis, the presses roared louder. More liquidity, more stimulus, more hope. Until hope itself became the product. Now, behind closed doors, they whisper about something new. QE to the power of X. Not billions, not trillions. Exponential creation. Printing money to hold up a system built entirely on debt. History knows this moment well. It's the point where the play becomes parody, when currency turns into theater, and confidence becomes the only prop keeping it upright. And every empire that reached this scene met the same ending. Wealthy in numbers, bankrupt in reality. What if the greatest tax in history doesn't come from your paycheck? Inflation isn't a mistake. It's a mechanism, the most elegant form of quiet control ever devised. When the presses run, governments don't just print money, they steal time. Every new dollar devalues the hours you've already worked, the savings you've already made, the dreams you've already built. Rome called it currency reform. Britain named it devaluation. America hides it behind two words: monetary policy. The language changes, the effect doesn't. Trust erodes slowly, disguised as growth. Numbers climb, but value disappears. The illusion of wealth replaces the reality of worth. This is how modern empires tax their citizens, not with soldiers at the door, but with rising prices and shrinking paychecks. They convince you you're richer because the numbers go up, even as your power to live quietly burns away. And now, drowning in debt, the Fed has made its choice: cut rates, print more, and hope belief lasts longer than math. But history is merciless. When faith costs more than truth, the system collapses under its own lies. Every empire runs on a currency you can't see: trust. Not gold, not paper, not credit, just belief. The belief that tomorrow the promise still has value. But trust is an empire of glass. Once it cracks, it never mends the same way. And when that fracture spreads through money itself, history gives it a name: a reset. In 1944, Bretton Woods rebuilt the world after war. In 1971, Nixon's pen severed gold from the dollar. In 2008, the printing press became policy. Now in 2025, the next reset is already underway. The world is quietly migrating away from paper promises, searching for value in the tangible: gold, land, energy, and even digital trust. This isn't chaos, it's correction. The same rhythm that has ended every monetary age, when belief costs more than truth and the story no longer sells. In that moment, the world doesn't collapse. It simply sheds its illusion. Old money dies, new systems rise, and history begins again. Gold needs no central bank. It doesn't plead. It doesn't default. It endures. Unchanged by politics, untouched by inflation, immune to ideology. That's why when every paper promise burns, the world runs back to it. The one form of value that doesn't beg for belief. In the ashes of Rome, gold survived. When Britain's pound fell, gold endured. And when the dollar finally trembles, gold will gleam again. Silent, patient, waiting. Because gold is not an investment, it's a mirror. It reflects the decay of every empire that tried to replace discipline with debt. Today, central banks are buying gold faster than at any time in modern history. Not out of greed, but out of fear. They know what's coming next. The next monetary order will not be measured in paper, but in trust. And trust, once again, will need something real to anchor it. Empires rise on credit. They survive on faith. But only truth, only gold, stands the test of time.
Every reset rewrites the story of power, but power doesn't shift through war anymore. It shifts through meaning. The strong no longer conquer with armies, but with definitions, by deciding what value means. For centuries, that definition was written in gold. Then came paper, a promise of trust. Then credit, algorithms, and digital ledgers that promised something even greater: control. But the truth never changed. Value isn't declared, it's believed. And belief cannot be printed, coded, or commanded. As nations drift from the dollar's orbit, new alliances form. Quietly, deliberately, east to west, trade by trade, ounce by ounce. They call it de-dollarization. History calls it succession. The same silent transfer of power that ended the British pound's reign, now repeating on a global stage. The next monetary order won't announce itself with flags or speeches. It will arrive quietly, in the questions people begin to ask. When they stop saying, "How many dollars is it worth?" and start whispering again, "What is it really worth?" The silent alarm that opened this story hasn't stopped ringing, it's just grown louder. Gold didn't rise to 4,000 by chance. It rose because faith fell. Because the system built on promises is now running out of belief. Every empire has faced this same echo, from Rome's debased silver to Britain's fading pound to America's printed dollar. Each believed it could rewrite the laws of value, that it could outprint consequence. But no empire has ever escaped the mathematics of trust. QE to the power of X isn't policy. It's the final act of a system that mistook paper for power. And just like those before it, this empire will discover that money dies long before the nation that prints it. Yet through every collapse, one truth never changes. Value cannot be created by decree. It must be earned, stored, and remembered. Gold endures because it doesn't beg for belief. It doesn't inflate or promise. It simply is, a mirror to every age that thought it could cheat reality. So when the next reset begins, when charts vanish, currencies fade, and new empires rise, remember how it started. A whisper, a printing press, and a faith too fragile to survive its own ambition. Because in the end, what collapses first is never the currency, it's the confidence behind it. And when that confidence dies, money becomes what it's always been, a memory of trust, written in gold. If this story opened your eyes, like this video so others can hear the alarm too, and subscribe to follow the next chapter of Money and Power. The cycle is repeating, and the next act has already begun.